back to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you all for subscribing to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. Thank you for your love and for your support. Okay, guys, so if you are new to the channel, you are highly and very welcome. If you have not subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button and then hit on the bell also to get an update whenever I upload a new video. Okay, so if you want to register for our online classes, you can see my number scrolling through the screen. Just send me a message on WhatsApp and then I'll give you the details of the classes that we have available. Okay, guys, so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you, that's in today's tutorial video, we're going to be making a palazzo for beginners. So this palazzo is going to be very detailed, so that is why I decided to call it a beginners friendly palazzo. So I already have different palazzo tutorials on the channel before, but I'm still going to be making this so that those beginners that actually cannot sew a palazzo, after watching this video, you will be able to do that. Okay, so the fabric that I have here, I'm making use of a crepe fabric, and I'm making use of, I have 3 yards of fabric here. So the first thing we're going to do now, I'm going to fold out my fabric, and the measurement that I'm going to be making use of, the hip measurement is 44. So you can use your own applicable measurement. The waist or the tummy, because it's going to be high waist, is going to be 32. And then the full length is going to be 44. So the width, that's how wide our palazzo is going to be at the ground, is going to be 15 inches. And we're going to be adding a band of about 2 inches to it. So the crouch measurement that we're going to be using for this, we're going to be making use of 12 inches of crouch. So I'll explain how I came about the 12 inches. So for the hip measurement is actually 44. So when you divide 44 into 4, you have 11 inches. So I added 1 inch to it as like a stitching allowance. So that is what gave me 12. So is that 12 inches? That's what I'm going to be using for my crouch. So please note. Okay, so I'll just fold the fabric right now. Okay, guys, so we are going to start inserting our measurements. So I'm going to explain the lines that I have here for you so you can see them. So since we're adding a band to this palazzo trouser, so what I'm going to do, you are going to take out 2 inches from all of your original measurements because you're adding a band. So it depends on how many inches band. So after that, the next thing I'm going to mark, the first line I have here is my hip line, just like our regular standard hip line measurement, which is like 10, is usually between 10 and 9. Okay, so my crouch measurement, just like I said, I have my crouch measurement. That's the crouch line. And then I have my knee line. I'm using 21.5 as my knee line. And then I have the full length of my palazzo trouser, which is 44. So I added 2 inches as allowance. So these are the lines that I have: my hip line, my crouch line, my knee line, and then my full length. This is allowance. So the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to start measuring. It's a very simple process. So we're going to be measuring from this side inwards. So I'm going to come to those points like this. This is the waistline. So this up part is the waist. So I'm going to mark 1 inch here. I just came in by 1 inch, and then I'm just going to mark it like this, just the way we normally mark our skirt. So from this point, I'm going to take this to the hip line. So this is our hip line. I'll just take it to the end of the hip line. Just mark it to the end of the hip line, and then from this hip line, I'll just make a curve. You know, this is the hip, just the way, you know, the way we curve our skirt. You just curve it a little bit. It should not be too sharp. And then I'll come to the knee line. So my knee line, what I'm going to do on the knee line, I'll come in by 1.5. Why I'm doing this is that I just want the, you know, the way we should normally shape our skirt. So it's just the same thing. So that's why I did this. So you can go in by 2, you can go in by 1 inch, 1.5. So on that line, so I came in by 1.5, and then okay, so the next line now we have here is the hem. That's the down part of our palazzo. So for the down part of the palazzo, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in by 1.5 inches. So this is just like to like give it a distinct, if I would say, shape. So I'm just going to use my long ruler now, and then I would mark it like this. Okay, so we're done with that. So we already have our shape for that part. So the next thing now, we're going to start inserting our measurements now. So my waist measurement is actually 32. So from this point, I'll measure inwards 32. So when you divide 32 into 4, you have 8 inches. This is my 8 inches. I'll go ahead, I'll mark my 8 inches here. So for the front, I'm not going to be adding any dart to my front pattern. So it's the back I'll add the dart. So I'm not going to add my dart allowance. So on this line, I'm going to add 2 inches for my stitching allowance. So I'll mark it like that. And then so this is my waist measurement. So the next thing now, on the hip line, I'm going to add my hip measurement. So like we said earlier on, the hip is 44. So when you divide 44 into 4, you have 11 inches. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll add the mark here. I'll mark it on the 11 inches point. And then I'll go ahead, I'll add the same 2 inches allowance that I added on the waistline. So I have this. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'll connect these two lines together like this. So I'm stopping there, and then I'll come to the knee line. Sorry, the crouch line. So on the crouch line, that's where you are going to insert your lap measurement. That's how wide you actually want your trouser to be. These ones, you notice these ones are, we use 2 4 4, that has been divided into 4. So on this part now, you are going to divide your lap measurement into 2. Okay, so my lap measurement, I'm making use of 30 inches. So you divide 30 into 2, I'm going to have 15 inches. So I'll take it like this, and I'll mark my 15 inches here. So for this part, I'm just going to go ahead, I'll add just about 1 inch for my allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do now, from this line, what I'm going to do, remember that line I marked, I'm just going to make a curve into the allowance part. So this is the allowance part. And then from this line, I'm taking it to this line. So I hope you can see it. So you can use your pattern curve. You can actually do this with a pattern curve. I'm just trying to. So you curve it in nicely, and then you get it up to that point, and then you just leave it. So the next thing we're going to do now, this same measurement that we have here, you just go ahead, measure what you have here, and then you can decide to repeat it on your knee line, or you can decide to reduce it. So for the knee part, I'm just going to reduce it by 1 inch. So that means I'm going to use 15 inches. I'll mark it like this, and then from this point like this, and then on the down part, I'm going to use 16 inches. So I'm going to mark like this. So from this point, I'll mark 16 inches here. So I hope you can see it. And then I'm going to go ahead, because it is a straight trouser, I'm just going to go ahead and join it together. So on your crouch line, you can actually do 2 inches. But since it is a palazzo, it's already very wide. So that is why I decided to make use of 1 inch. So you can do 2 inches if you are making normal trouser. So this is our front pattern. We're going to use this pattern now to cut out the back pattern. So I hope you understand. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out right now. Okay, so I'm going to place the front piece now on the back piece. So I'll just go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so I've placed the back piece on the front. So the next thing we're going to do now, I'm going to add 1 inch to the back pattern. That's the height. And then from that 1 inch, I'm just going to flow it into the waist area like this. So the reason why we're doing this is that pants patterns, if you check, the back is always higher than the front. So that is why I added the extra 1 inch, because if you make both of them the same, the crouch area is going to be holding on the under part. So you see it will be pulling upwards. So from this part, on this side, I'm going to add 1 inch on the waist area. Why I'm adding that 1 inch is because of the dart. So I'll just add the 1 inch here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and flow it into the hip part. So you see it is equal on the hip part. This is just where we have the 1 inch. And then the next thing I'm going to do now, so on the crouch area, we're going to add to the crouch area. So I'm going to go ahead like this. So you can do this. You can actually do 2 inch on this side. So it's usually easier. Just mark it like this. And then from this part, the 2 inches, you just flow it into this area. So since it is a wide leg pants, what I'm going to do, I'm using half of an inch. So you can do 1 inch. So half of an inch is okay. So you just make sure that it's 2 inches on this side, this crouch point line, to use 2 inches. And then from this part, you just take half of an inch. So our 2 inches, we're still going to continue. So you just come like this in order for you to like balance it properly, and then just keep going. So from these 2 inches, that's where I'm going to add my zip. So I'll go ahead, I'll flow it into this part. Since I've already added the 1 inch on that part for my dart, I'll just flow it into this part like this. So you can see, so that is why the back pattern, so that actually makes it to sit properly. So I hope I've not wasted so much time on this tutorial, because it is a beginner's video, so that is why. So I'll go ahead, I'll cut this out right now. So on this side is equal. We are not adding any extra. So for the dart, like I said, I'm adding it on the back pattern alone. So I'll just fold this, and then I'll put a notch here. So that is how simple and easy our palazzo is. So the next thing now, we're going to go and start stitching it together. So I'm going to show you how we're going to stitch it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to join them on the crouched part. So this is our crouch line. I'll join this crouch line and then join the back crouch line. And then I'll bring it back to show you. So it's very simple. And then we'll join the side. So we're done. Okay guys, so I finished stitching, joining them on the crouch part. So the next thing you're going to do, you're going to put a notch on where you want to start stitching, because of the allowance that we added on the crouch area. So it's always better to do it that way. So the next thing, I'm going to turn, this is the back, so I've added the dart, and then this is my front piece. I'm going to match them together. So I added pockets on this trouser, but I did not show it here. Since we're making, this is like a beginner's tutorial, so it's easier for us to master the act, just master the trouser, the technique first, and then you can now learn how to add pockets. Actually makes it easier, so that's why I decided to do that. So the next thing now, we're going to match our seams together on the side. So you match them on the side with the quarter of an inch or half of an inch, depends on your allowance. You match it after sewing the side, and then you are now, after stitching the two sides, then you stitch the center. So the center, you know that the back is bigger than the front. If you see, you can see that the back is longer, but you just pull them together and make sure that they match, and just stitch them to the down part. So I'll go ahead, I'll do that right, and then bring it back and show you how we're going to cut out the bands that we'll use. Okay guys, so you can see how my palazzo trousers looking like. So you see it came out beautiful. So you can see the crouch area. It is really fitting nicely. So I like what I see. So mine, I made it very long because I'm going to be wearing it with high heels. I don't like trousers that are hanging. So you can see the back. So you see the back area. It really came out really beautiful. So the next thing is for me to add my band. If you are those people that don't like band, you can just tie your waistline. For mine, I'm going to add a band to it to make it very high. So let's just cut out the band now. Okay guys, so we're going to cut out our band now. So before cutting out the band, I'm going to deepen the front waistline a little bit. So you can add that from the beginning, but I just decided to just the way you're shaping your skirt, the front. So you see I've deepened it. And then you make sure you're shaping every part. Make sure it is all straightened out together. Okay, so for the band, we're going to use our waist measurement. to measure out the band. So most times I actually like cutting it excess. Okay, so I'm going to make cut band of about 32 inches. So I'll go ahead, I'll just fold my fabric. So I'm cutting a band of 2 inches. So I'll make it about 3 inches. So I'll use half inch to sew it. So what I mark here is about 34 inches. And then from this point, I'll come like this. I'll mark my 3 inches here. So if you notice, it is like on a bias. It's not on a straight line. I'm not making it on a straight as in one single straight line. So I'm just giving it one kind of curve. So this is one. I'll cut out another one because I'll sew and turn it. Okay, so I'll take it up back to my machine now. I'm going to sew the top part. So if you notice, like I said, you can see my band is not straight. It's a little bit curvy. So I'll sew this part and then sew the side. And then I'll fix this part on it. So this part that I'm going to fix, I'm going to reduce it by half of an inch. That's I'll reduce a part of it by half of an inch. So I'll do that after stitching and turning it. So you can see my band. So I'm going to show you how I fix the first part. So you just take that part, that short part that would the part that would trim out a little bit out from. You fix it on the inside, right? You make it right side facing the wrong side of the fabric. So this is the wrong side of my fabric. So you can see it is inside. So I fix it on the inside now. So the next thing is going to stay like this now. So now I'm going to go ahead and cover it up. So in covering it up, I'm just going to take this part now that is the longer part. We trimmed a little bit from that part. So just fold it back and then I'll place it here and then do a very neat stitch. So for a beginner, this might be a little bit difficult for you to do. So for a beginner, you can just decide to stitch your band. That's hold the two edges together and just stitch it together around once. And then when you are done, you just serge, use an overlock seam to close the rough part. So that will be much easier for you. So I'll just go ahead now, finish it up, and then I'll place it on the mannequin for you to see the final look of our palazzo. Okay, so at the end of the day, so you can see how our palazzo is looking. So it came out well, so you can see the crotch area. So you see the back part, so you see it is looking really beautiful. You see it entered and it is well fitted. So thank you so much. If you find this video helpful, I would appreciate if you hit on the like button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. I had to put it on because my mannequin, the box is bigger than mine, so it did not enter.